Aliens scanned Earth's battleship. What they saw made them flee in terror. The first thing the Varathi scout commander noticed when their long-range sensors caught sight of the human vessel was how utterly primitive it appeared, a slab of steel and fire crawling slowly through the void with none of the grace or elegance of a real warship. No organic curves of living hulls, no luminescent shielding lattices glowing across its surface. Just dark, brutish angles of armor that looked like they had been hammered together in desperation rather than sculpted through. Centuries of naval tradition. And so, he did what any commander in old empire would do when faced with such a curiosity. He laughed and ordered a full-spectrum scan, because in his mind there could be no harm, no risk, only amusement in dissecting the pathetic toy the upstart species called their battleship. But as the beams of coherent energy washed across the human ship's hull, as particle interrogators probed its systems, as the neural nets of the Varathi fleet began pulling data into comprehensible formats, the laughter began to falter, replaced first by confusion, then by silence. For the readings made no sense. They contradicted themselves. They screamed with impossible values that no sane engineer could reconcile. The ship was heavy, yes, absurdly so, far denser than it should have been for its size, its mass more fitting of a fortress station than a mobile craft, and yet its engines pulsed with outputs that should have been physically impossible to achieve given the energy signatures recorded, as if it carried not reactors, but something deeper, something that bent the rules they had written into the fabric of their understanding. And worse, much worse, were the weapon signatures, because the scans picked up acceleration fields coiled along the hull that hinted at launch velocities so great the Varathi computers marked them as errors, flagged them as artifacts, but then confirmed them again and again until the commander could no longer deny what he was. Seeing that this human vessel carried kinetic projectors that could launch slugs at a fraction of light speed, impacts with enough concentrated force to pierce not just shields but planetary crusts, and woven around those rails were smaller anomalies, signatures of swarms, of drone bays humming with artificial minds not yet cataloged in the galactic registers. AI cores shielded from outside interference in ways that suggested adaptability far beyond the rigid programming most species dared allow. And then, buried deeper, hidden behind masking fields so crude they should have been laughable, but which somehow worked, came the most chilling echo of all, a singularity distortion, a gravity spike so sudden and so sharp that the fleet system screamed warnings usually reserved for dying stars, a pattern that matched no weapon in the archives, but which instinct screamed was a weapon nonetheless, something that had no right to exist on a ship so small, on a ship from a species barely a century into spaceflight. And as those readings poured and the laughter died completely, replaced by an ancient instinct that no amount of training could suppress, fear, the raw primal kind that ancestors had felt in caves when predators' eyes gleamed from the darkness, and for a long moment the bridge of the Varathi scout ship was silent as they stared at the human vessel drifting serenely against a backdrop of stars, unaware, it seemed, of the panic it had just sparked. Captain Elias Ward of the UNS Nemesis, for that was a name painted in stark white letters across the armored hide of the human battleship, stood on his bridge like a man carved from the same steel as the ship, eyes fixed on the tactical display that showed faint ripples of movement where the Varathi fleet lingered at the edge of sensor range, his jaw tight but his voice calm as he instructed his officers to maintain formation, to keep their weapons primed but not armed, for he knew this game well already, the mockery of the alien commentators, the disbelief of ancient empires that humans could build something to rival them, and he also knew that their scans would already be unraveling truths they were not ready to face, that beneath the crude exterior of Nemesis, for humanity had intentionally made its warship look brutish and clumsy, a shell of iron and menace that disguised the precision of its core, there lurked the culmination of every desperate innovation Earth had clawed from, the edge of extinction, because humanity had been born in struggle, had grown by enduring disasters, had evolved by defying odds that should have erased them, and the Nemesis was no different. It was less a warship than a testament, a weapon forged not from abundance but from necessity, carrying within it all the ruthless creativity of a species that had always been underestimated. And Elias took no pride in knowing that what the Varathi saw now would terrify them. He took only grim satisfaction, because terror meant hesitation, and hesitation meant survival. On the other side of the void, the Varathi commander argued with his officers in cacophony of voices, some insisting that the scans must be errors, that no primitive world could leapfrog millennia of development, others whispering that perhaps the humans had stolen technology, scavenged something forbidden, and still others urging immediate retreat, their voices shaking, their confidence fractured by the impossible readings. And in the middle of that storm of doubt, the commander's mind kept returning to one truth. Their fleet was strong, dozens of ships against only one, but numbers meant little if the enemy carried weapons that could erase matter itself. And for the first time in centuries of service, he hesitated, his hand frozen above the command glyphs, unable to give the order to fire, because something deep inside him knew that if they struck first, if they triggered whatever secrets lay hidden inside that ugly human hull, it would not be the humans who died screaming into the void. It would be them. And so the laughter that had followed humanity into the stars twisted upon itself, curdled into fear, and though the galaxy had mocked when Earth launched its first true battleship, those who scanned it now felt the icy grip of realization that the prey they had dismissed might in fact be the predator, and that the void would soon echo not with their triumph but with their terror. The battle lines had been drawn in silence across the void, an emptiness so profound it seemed to drink in sound, light, and even courage, leaving only the shimmering glimmer of stars and the menacing geometry of alien warships sliding into position like predatory fish circling their prey. And at the center of it all, alone, black, and unassuming, floated Earth's solitary battleship Leviathan, her angular hull lit only by the glow of running lights, her presence a defiance that mocked the odds, because against her hung an armada of ships too many to count, silver spears of alien engineering bristling with weapons forged in furnaces older than humanity itself, each one forged of the arrogance of civilizations who had never been challenged, yet who now hesitated, as if sensing that their prey was something more than it seemed. And in the command deck of Leviathan, Captain Rourke stood rigid, every nerve inside him taut, his gaze locked not on the tactical hologram displaying enemy positions but on the faces of his crew. For he knew that ships were steel and circuitry, but battles were fought and won in the hearts of those who dared to man them. And his crew, his hand-picked, scarred, brilliant, reckless crew, were the only shield Earth had left against extinction. And though he felt a tremor of fear in his bones, he buried it, replacing it with iron, because his duty was not to show the weakness that gnawed at him, but to embody the unshakable resolve humanity would need to survive what was coming. Outside, the alien fleet moved with terrifying grace, their ships weaving like dances across the stars, every adjustment of their formation suggesting intelligence honed over millennia of war, yet none of them fired, and Rourke understood why. They were scanning, still trying to comprehend what they had seen when their first probes had sliced across Leviathan's hull, sending back readings that had shaken even them. And though the aliens were masters of deception, masters of annihilation, they were not immune to doubt. And it was that doubt Rourke meant to sharpen into fear, because fear would do more damage than any cannon. "Helm," he said evenly. "Bring us 10 degrees starboard. Let them see us move." And his helmsman obeyed, shifting the colossal vessel with a grace no human eyes had ever seen in war. For Leviathan was not built as ships once were. She did not lurch or grind against inertia, but flowed like a living shadow, sliding across space with balance no alien technology could comprehend. And Rourke saw the reaction immediately as the alien formation wavered, just slightly, as if uncertain of the reality. They were witnessing. The silence of waiting was worse than any barrage, and it stretched minute after minute, long enough for doubt to creep into even human minds, until finally, with a flash of light brighter than lightning, the first alien volley tore across the darkness, beams of coherent plasma streaking toward Leviathan like the claws of gods. And for an instant it looked as though the human ship would be obliterated. But when the fire touched its hull, something happened that no one, not alien nor human, had expected. For the beams did not shatter armor, did not melt steel, did not even scar the surface. They bent refracted, twisted as if space itself had betrayed the aliens, and their power arced harmlessly into nothingness, leaving Leviathan untouched. And for the first time in living memory, the predators of the galaxy recoiled. Gasps broke out across the command deck, but Rourke did not allow triumph. Not yet. He only gave the next command. Return fire. One shot only. The weapons officer's hands moved like a prayer over controls designed in secret, her finger pressing into history. And from the underbelly of Leviathan, a single lance of blue-white light tore into the void, so fast, so clean, So absolute it seemed less like a weapon, and more like the universe itself was correcting a mistake, and an alien cruiser, vast and deadly, was simply a race gone in silence. Its atoms scattered to the stars before its crew could even cry out. For a heartbeat, the galaxy froze. Then chaos erupted. The alien fleet convulsed in panic, their ships scattering in desperate maneuvers, some firing blindly, others retreating, others holding position as if waiting for command. And in that fracture, Rourke saw the truth that no fleet, no matter how advanced, no matter how ancient, could escape. They were not prepared to fight something that broke their rules of reality. They were not prepared to fight an enemy who had turned the laws of physics into an ally. And though Rourke knew the secret behind Leviathan's impossible defense and unstoppable offense, he also knew it was a truth that would remain sealed inside the ship until the end. For the galaxy ever understood how humanity had built her, it would either bow in awe or burn Earth down to ashes in fear. But there was no time to ponder philosophy, because the Armada was still vast, still deadly, and though fear rippled through them, fear could be dangerous. It could turn desperation into slaughter. So Rourke moved again, his voice calm, steady, cutting through the storm. Helm, advance. Weapons, target their flanks, no more than 2 volleys. Let them see, let them understand. And so Leviathan advanced, not like a hunted creature, but like a predator among prey, her hull absorbing fury without flinching, her guns firing in measured rhythm, each blast erasing another alien warship, yet always with restraint, never wasteful, never arrogant. Each kill deliberate, designed to unmake not just ships, but the very spirit of those who watched their comrades vanish into nothingness, until the battle that had begun as a hunt became something else entirely, an unraveling. Inside the alien fleet, signals blared, languages shouted across channels, but no one was laughing now, and though Rourke could not hear their words, he could see their actions, the hesitation, the faltering, the breaking of their perfect formations, and it struck him then, amid the blaze and terror, that this was how humanity had always survived, not by being strongest, not by being the most advanced, but by being the most stubborn, by enduring when others thought endurance impossible, by daring to fight when all logic dictated surrender, and in that stubbornness lay the seed of something more powerful than all their weapons: unpredictability. The aliens had scanned Leviathan and thought they saw terror, but what they were really seeing was freedom, the refusal of a young species to kneel before inevitability, and it frightened them because somewhere in their endless ages of conquest they had forgotten what it meant to face an enemy who did not play by rules. Hours passed like seconds, the void ablaze with fire that could incinerate worlds, but still Leviathan endured. Still she struck, until finally the alien ships began to retreat, pulling back in broken clusters, some vanishing into folds of hyperspace, others drifting powerless. And for the first time since the battle began, Rourke allowed himself to breathe, but it was not relief that filled him. It was something heavier, for he knew this was not the end, only the beginning, because the galaxy had seen humanity's strength, and though fear might scatter them now, it would also unite them later, and the next armada would be larger, stronger, desperate to erase the threat before it could grow, and humanity, still fragile, still untested, would need to stand ready not just to fight, but to survive the storm that was coming. He looked at his crew, their faces pale but fierce, and in their eyes he saw what the aliens had failed to see, that humanity was not just one ship, not just one gamble, but billions of hearts waiting to rise, and that was a terror far greater than any scan could reveal. The silence that followed the alien retreat was a silence unlike any the crew of the Earth battleship had ever known, not the calm of victory or the hush of relief, but the weighted stillness of a universe rearranging itself, as if every star in the quadrant paused to consider what had just transpired, and though cheers erupted on the bridge, ragged and heartfelt, they quickly faded because every man and woman aboard understood in their bones that this was not the end of the battle, but the beginning of something far larger. For when the alien fleet broke and fled, it was not because they could not win through numbers, but because what they had seen within the human ship's core had shaken them. And as the captain stood at the forward viewport, watching the debris field scatter like glitter among the void, he could not help but recall the split second when the alien sensors had penetrated their hull and glimpsed the secret. The one thing humanity had sworn never to reveal, the thing even most of the crew themselves barely comprehended. And now he wondered if the galaxy would ever let them exist in peace again, knowing what slept inside the heart of their ship. The engineers reported systems stable. The helmsman confirmed their shields held, and the weapons chief ran diagnostics with trembling fingers. But behind every report there was the same unspoken question. What now? When the secret was out, when fear had replaced mockery, when respect had turned to terror. What did humanity's path become? The battleship was not supposed to exist. It had been born from desperation, forged in the shadows of Earth's last wars, built not with the arrogance of empire, but with the cold clarity of extinction hanging over every blueprint. And the thing at its core, the drive that should not have been possible, was not even fully human in origin, though it was humanity's boldness that claimed it, reverse-engineered it, and harnessed it in a way no other species dared. For humans were reckless where others were cautious, dreamers where others were bureaucrats, willing to test engines on live crews and strap themselves to prototypes that burned men alive until one day it worked. And when it did, it gave birth to a ship that now hung like a phantom among broken alien hulls. But now the aliens knew. They had scanned the truth. They had seen the impossible singularity humming in the ship's belly. The human-created black sphere cage and stabilized, a pocket singularity reactor that bent not only energy but probability, a weapon and engine that existed in the same breath, something that made human shields harder when struck and made their cannons cut deeper the longer they fired, something that had allowed them to dance between ships as though luck itself bent in their favor, and the aliens, who revered stability and feared chaos, had recoiled in horror because to them such power was not merely dangerous but profane, the violation of natural law, and that was why they fled. The crew now stood divided between pride and dread, some whispering that humanity had earned its place among the stars, others muttering that they had painted a target too large to escape, and in the quiet corners of the ship men and women stared at the floor and thought of families on Earth who would now live under the shadow of not only alien fleets but alien fear. And the captain knew his next words mattered more than any battle order he had ever given. So he gathered his crew in the main hall, faces lit by the dim glow of emergency strips, and he spoke with the calm of a man who knew history listened. Today you fought not for glory but survival, and survival was won, but we cannot mistake this moment for peace. For though they ran today, they will not forget tomorrow, and though they fear us now, fear breeds vengeance as easily as it breeds respect, and so our duty is not finished. It has only just begun. His words fell like stones into a lake, ripples spreading, some faces tightening in resolve, others cloudy in worry, and as they dispersed back to stations, the captain remained alone a moment longer, staring at the image burned into his mind of the alien fleet reversing course, as if fleeing death itself. And he wondered what council chambers across the galaxy now echoed with frantic debates about humanity's audacity. Reports trickled in over long-range comms, fractured signals from listening posts confirming alien alliances were already convening emergency summits, some calling for preemptive strikes, others for treaties, but all agreeing on one thing, that Earth could never again be dismissed as primitive, and the captain realized the laughter was gone forever, replaced not by applause but by the low drumbeat of caution, suspicion, and fear, and he asked himself if that was truly a victory. Days passed in tense quiet as the battleship limped back toward Earth space, escorting nothing but its own wounded pride and scorched plating, and when they finally emerged over the pale blue marble of their homeworld, transmissions cascaded in cheers, relief, awe. And yet behind every celebration the captain heard the sharp note of expectation, as if the people of Earth now looked at him and his crew, not just as protectors, but as bearers of a new torch, a fire that could burn either for freedom or domination, and he knew that burden was heavier than any warship hull. In orbit, government officials swarmed comms, demanding reports, pressing for details of the battle and the enemy's retreat. But the captain gave only what was necessary, refusing to reveal the true terror the aliens had glimpsed, because he knew the day would come when even humanity might fear the thing it had created. And until then it was better to let the myth grow larger than the truth. For myths were sometimes more powerful than weapons. That night, as the ship rotated gently above Earth, the captain walked the observation deck alone and looked down at the fragile swirl of clouds and seas, the cradle of a species now thrust unwilling into legend. And he thought of the ancient sailors who once crossed oceans with nothing but wood and canvas, mocked by empires until they planted flags on distant shores. And he realized history had only repeated itself on a scale 1,000 times greater. The laughter of the aliens still echoed faintly in memory, but now it was drowned by silence. The silent a galaxy that peered into the dark heart of humanity's creation and recoiled, and in that silence lay both safety and peril. For the future would not be written by the victors of one battle, but by the choices made in the long shadow it cast. The captain placed a hand against the glass, whispering to no one but the stars, "Let them remember what they saw, but let us never forget who we are." And in that moment, he vowed that the battleship would not be a weapon of tyranny, but a shield of survival, even if the universe chose to call a monster. The crew slept uneasily, aware their lives had been braided with destiny, and somewhere deep in the engine room the singularity hummed, a caged star that did not sleep, a reminder that humanity's reach had torn open a door that could never be shut again. And as dawn broke over Earth, bathing the ship in gold, the captain knew this was not an ending but a beginning. The first chapter of a story no longer laughed at, a story that would echo in every council, every war room, every whispered prayer, across the stars, that once the aliens scanned Earth's battleship, and what they saw made them flee in terror. And that was how humanity announced itself to the galaxy.